going live. We are live, and we've got a show. Got a lot of show. So here it is.
This is a DTNS allergy warning. If you are allergic to excessive discussion of net neutrality, please consider skipping this episode. If you are allergic to overwhelming nostalgia for Buzz Out Loud, please consider skipping this episode. If you are allergic to a DTNS greater than 1/2 hour in duration, please consider skipping this episode. If none of the above apply, please consider patreon.com/acedetect.
June 6th, 2007. Ed Whiteacre, the CEO of AT&T, who is handing over the reins to someone new, has not been changing at all. He gave some interesting remarks about net neutrality during his parting speech. Here's a couple quotes for you. "There's a problem. It's called net neutrality. Well, frankly, we say to hell with that. We're going to put up some toll booths and start charging admission."
Man, he is the most... Like, I understand that this is apparently somewhat of a religious cause for him, but doesn't he understand how hilariously anti-consumer he sounds? Like, dude, there is only one reason that you became the CEO, the ridiculously overpaid CEO of a ludicrously profitable company, and it's because you have customers. And the more you just rant in public like a crazy man about screwing those customers the first chance you get, the less I think the brand affinity of AT&T is going to stick.
He just doesn't care. He's going out. He's done. He putting his last word in and going to the Caribbean.
And he's probably furious because AT&T had to agree to network neutrality. I mean, all of this is somewhat moot, right? Because they had to agree to it to get that merger through.
The crazy rantings of a madman.
$35 billion in gross profits over the last 12 months, by the way, for the good old AT&T execs.
Well, and I think he's walking out the door with close to $1 billion or something, isn't he?
That was June 6, 2007. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, February 4th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Allison Sheridan, host of NosillaCast. And we've got some follow-up to that June 6, 2007 event. It was actually October 2005 when Whiteacre really kicked off the net neutrality debate when he was still the CEO of SBC, saying, "Ain't no way voice over internet protocol is going to use my pipes." And net neutrality just ratcheted up from them until we get to today when the FCC is making their decision about how they will approach net neutrality. We're going to talk about that a lot, Allison, but thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate you being along.
I just feel like singing, "This is the song that never ends."
It really is. Yeah, it won't end. Hopefully, we're hoping that Molly Wood's going to jump in here and join us for the discussion as well in a few minutes. That was her and Veronica Belmont you heard on a clip courtesy CNET from Buzz Out Loud in 2007. But let's start with the actual headlines. It looks like NCTA Chairman Michael Powell's idea of World War III will come to pass tomorrow. FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler wrote an opinion column for Wired and then later posted on the FCC.gov website that he will propose, quote, that the FCC use its Title II authority to implement and enforce open internet protections. His proposal will ban paid prioritization and the blocking and throttling of lawful content and services. He hopes to preserve motivation for investment, though, by ensuring, quote, there will be no rate regulation, no tariffs, no last-mile unbundling required. For the first time, the open internet rules would apply to wireless as well as wireline providers. We've got a lot to say about that.
So hard not to comment. But moving on. 9to5Mac has the sources that say Apple is working on an unnamed streaming music service that will use Beats music content and technologies. Users will be able to stream music from the searchable music catalog and add songs to their personal libraries and store music either on a device or in the cloud. Apple will also integrate Beats music playlists, activities, and mixes features into the new service, letting users access human-curated playlists. 9to5 sources say Apple is considering $7.99 a month and maybe will launch at WWDC.
I kind of wondered if they would do this when they bought Beats. It seems like they're going to keep Beats going, at least for the time being. And I was curious if they would make Beats the Apple streaming service, which would make sense, or if they would try to create an iTunes version of it. Sounds like they're going that direction, saying let's let Beats be Beats, but let's create an Apple-ish iTunes under our tent version, because that's more like Apple, right?
Right, but if you had to look at branding and said which name would you keep, Beats or iTunes? I mean, everybody hates iTunes, right? I mean, it had its time, but
it's now identified with very large software, it seems like.
Yeah, that's all it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. They need a new name. Well, maybe that's why we don't know what the name is from this leak, and admittedly, it's just a leak. eTunes. It's going to be an educational music service. The Verge has a post about some evidence that Apple may be also testing cars equipped with camera rigs, rigs that looked very similar to the Google Street View cars. A website called claycord.com published photos of just such a car that San Francisco's KPIX, CBS affiliate, has confirmed are leased to Apple. A similar car was spotted in New York in September. The cars seem to be equipped with LiDAR, that's light detection and ranging cameras, similar to what's used by Google and Nokia for their mapping efforts. The car also includes a wheel sensor used by Navtech when they created street imagery for the Bing Maps. LiDAR is also used for self-driving cars, so if you really want to get crazy with your theories, Apple might be coming out with a self-driving car, would be your theory.
Now, didn't we also see yesterday that Apple was opened up some jobs in search?
Yeah,
search, self-driving cars.
I don't know how much to countenance those search job things. I've also seen stories flat out saying, no, Apple is not starting a search engine. So I don't know what to think about that. This is confirmed, though. This is actual pictures. Yeah, we've seen the cars, and CBS has confirmed, or KPIX anyway, CBS affiliate, has confirmed that that Apple did lease these. The question is what they're for. It makes more sense to me that they would be for Apple Maps, don't you think?
Yeah, I would think so. But I just want self-driving cars to exist so badly. When you and Patrick were talking yesterday about that solving the problem with Uber, an Uber self-driving car to me is just like perfection itself. I'm in.
Yeah, I think self-driving cars are maybe 2 years away from becoming a battleground. So maybe Apple wants to be in on testing how their services would work with them, right? Maybe not that Apple wants to create a self-driving car, but they want to create a system that automakers could use in their self-driving cars. I could absolutely see that.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Well, TechCrunch reports Microsoft has paid at least $100 million for calendar app maker Sunrise. The company makes apps for iOS, Android, OS X, and the web that consolidate calendars from different providers. Users can access their consolidated calendar from other services like Google, iCloud, and Exchange. TechCrunch has heard Microsoft will keep Sunrise as a standalone product while borrowing some tech for Microsoft efforts. You know what I think Microsoft's done here? I think they've taken to heart the Netflix model. Be on everything. Be everywhere. I love it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that as well. The Sunrise is an app that I installed and loved the design of, but early on it wasn't in as many places as it is now. This kind of, especially when you look at what they did with Acompli, they let Acompli continue to be Acompli and then turned it into Outlook.com, which is a fantastic email manager. I'm curious now if I'm going to be wanting to use a Microsoft Calendar product to manage my Google Calendar in the future.
and doing it on your iOS device.
Yeah, just keep it, and then I don't know, I'll put Amazon in there somehow.
Now I'm confused. And Outlook does calendars too, though, right?
Yes, Outlook has a calendaring system, and so what this would do is say Microsoft Exchange still exists. You're still going to have your calendar on Outlook, but what Sunrise does is it says, sure, you can have your calendar on Exchange. You can also have a calendar on Gmail. You can also have an iCal, and we'll keep all of those together for you so that you've got them all in one, and then you can access that consolidated calendar on Microsoft Exchange or else, right.
It's doing the handshaking between them all.
Really smart. It's very close to being the one thing that we have all wanted forever.
Okay.
VentureBeat reports that Microsoft has released downloadable previews of the universal Word, Excel, and PowerPoint apps for Windows 10. Microsoft says the new apps are optimized for tablets or touch-enabled laptops and desktops and provide a consistent way for independent software vendors and developers to extend and integrate with Office apps. A phone version will arrive in the coming weeks. Downloads of the new Word, Excel, and PowerPoint apps are available from the Windows Store beta as long as you've got Windows 10. So if you're in that early adopters program, that insider program, just look at the Windows Store and you should see these pretty soon.
Now, the VentureBeat article talked a lot about the touch-enabledness of these things, and I'm a huge fan, again, of what Microsoft is doing, getting their applications everywhere. But I tried using Word on my iPhone the other day, and it was a horrible experience. But on the iPad, it was really, really good. So I don't think they've really gotten down to how it works well on a small device.
The smaller screens are the tougher ones, for sure.
Yeah. Well, according to TechCrunch, the Cyberspace Administration of China is now requiring users of social media, website services, and forums to register their actual names and ID starting March 1st. Although similar actions have been taken in the past when microblog Weibo enforced real names in 2012, these changes are far more sweeping. Can anyone spell chilling effect?
You can't spell chilling effect without CHIN. You don't need the A, though. If you want the latest version of Android Lollipop, you might want to move to India. The Next Web reports Google updated its Android One website for India today, indicating that Android One devices will receive the 5.1 update to Android Lollipop. That would make them the first devices in the world to get that update. Android One devices with 5.1 are also scheduled to arrive in Indonesia later this month, with Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka expected to get them next.
So India would get them on the Android One devices before the Nexus devices.
Yeah, and they would be going from KitKat straight to Lollipop 5.1.
So confusing.
Yeah.
Breaking news. Reuters reports 30-year-old Ross Ulbricht has been found guilty on Wednesday of 7 counts, including drug trafficking and conspiracies to commit money laundering and computer hacking for orchestrating a scheme that enabled $200 million of anonymous online drug sales using Bitcoin on the site Silk Road. Ulbricht is believed by many to be the Silk Road operator Dread Pirate Roberts.
And time now for some news from you. This comes from our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. TNinja3000 sent us a Tech in Asia report that Alibaba's online marketplace Taobao has partnered with Shanghai YTO Express for a 3-day test program starting today, which is essentially yesterday if you're in China, in which 450 customers will get a chance to have packages that weigh less than 340 grams delivered to their door by drone. Take that, Amazon! The site offers a list of available products, which include a ginger tea that helps to relieve menstrual cramps, because that's the kind of thing you want right away.
Aww. Well, starfuryzeta sent us this story from Engadget regarding Canary Watch, a website created by a coalition of privacy advocacy groups, including the EFF and NYU's Technology Law and Policy Clinic. The Canary Watch website monitors sites and reports when canary pages that state a site has received no national security letter request, for instance, have disappeared.
And that is a look at the headlines. All right, a lot to talk about today. Joining us to discuss the proposed open internet rules, I believe they're calling them now, Ms. Molly Wood from the New York Times. How's it going, Molly?
Hello, it's great. How are you? I was totally like, I can't be missing the net neutrality conversation.
No. I don't know if you caught it because you joined afterwards, but I played a little snippet from our June 6th, 2007 Buzz Out Loud at the beginning of the show.
Really?
And as far as I can recall, that was the first time that we really dug into the net neutrality thing. It was when Ed Whiteacre said in his goodbye speech, like, you ain't using my pipes for free. It wasn't the first time he'd said it, of course, but it really was the thing that, as I remember it, sparked people to start discussing this way back then.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, also, just as a side note, nice to meet you, Allison.
Oh, nice to meet you, Molly.
But yes, I completely agree. And I remember at the time that we didn't initially devote tons and tons of discussion to that concept because he sounded so crazy. I mean, do you remember that he started making these statements about you're not going to use my pipes for free and I'm going to find a way to charge you, and we were all like, he's a
We're going to set up toll booths.
Yeah, we're going to set up toll booths and you're going to have to pay extra to get on the internet. And we were like, oh, luckily that crazy man's going to go away. And then 10 years later, not even a little bit. You could just see the guys at AT&T and Verizon and even Comcast sitting there thinking, hey, yeah, sometimes an idea just takes off like wildfire.
Yeah. Well, and this is definitely that kind of attitude probably caused the entrenched opposition, because it is absolutely true, and net neutrality proponents don't like to talk about this. It is absolutely true that there have been very few, arguably none, depending on how you look at it, net neutrality violations in the United States. You could say that maybe T-Mobile's zero rating is a net neutrality violation. You can find some better examples on wireless, but on wireline, you really have to stretch to things like, well, is killing a BitTorrent package, is that really a net neutrality violation or not?
So they've been very careful then.
Yeah, there has been, and Comcast has had to agree to open internet guidelines. AT&T had to agree when they purchased Bell South to adhere to open internet guidelines. The question has been what they're going to be for a long time, and of course that's what we've been fighting for the past year. There is a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt out there. So let me just set the table here by reading through and summarizing what the FCC posted today. Now, this isn't the full proposal yet. We haven't got to look at that.
No, to be fair, it's an op-ed.
Yeah. Well, it's an op-ed, and then the FCC...
But there's an accompanying document, right?
FCC put a company document, which is a little more in-depth summary, but still not the official the official proposal, right? Yeah. So let me throw this out here and see what you guys think. The bright line rules, as they call them, are no blocking, no throttling, no paid prioritization, a standard for future conduct so that things that come up that we haven't anticipated will fall under these guidelines, greater transparency, which was already in force. That's not new. That was under Section 706, and reasonable network management, saying, look, if you need to manage your network and it's not exactly neutral, as long as you're doing it for reasonable network management, that's allowed. It can't be used to undermine open internet protections. Now, the way they're doing this is interesting. They are using Title II to justify this, and so therefore they are reclassifying broadband internet access service as a telecommunications service under Title II. They're also using Section 706 of the 94 Act as backup authority, saying we are also committed to rolling out access to everybody under Section 706. We believe that mobile broadband rests on Title III, and that gives us justification to include mobile broadband here. And then they go back to Section 706 authority to protect the virtuous circle of innovation, as well as Title II's just and reasonable. So they didn't have to choose. They're using both Title II and Section 706. The big thing is reclassifying it from an information service to a telecommunications service. Now, what you've probably heard from a lot of people is this is going to mean a lot of new fees. They very clearly say in this document they are going to forbear, which means they're going to make it part of the policy that you will not do rate regulation. The FCC will not charge a universal service fee. There will be no new taxes or fees. There will be no last mile unbundling, which a lot of people wanted. Right. There will be no burdensome administrative filing or accounting standards. And they use as an example...
unbundling thing, Tom? I don't understand what that last mile unbundling part was.
Sure. That last mile unbundling says that if I own a network and I've got a last mile connection, say, I'm a cable operator, I'm Comcast, I've got a last mile connection right into your house, I'm not going to be forced under Title II as a common carrier to open that up to others to use.
Okay.
I can continue to be the only service on those pipes. And they finish off with a case study saying, look, the wireless industry has invested over $400 billion under similar rules for phone service, wireless phone service, proving that modernized Title II regulation can support investment and competition.
It's really interesting because the last time we talked about net neutrality, you and I were somewhat surprisingly coming down on the side of caution around Title II reclassification because it did seem like a slightly outmoded method for taking on something as sort of vibrant and necessary and unique as the internet and open access. At first blush, and granted, this is a long way from done, right? This will lead to a lot more discussion, a lot more lobbying, possibly congressional bills. The House GOP, I think House Republicans had already introduced some version of a bill that would try to ensure net neutrality but take the FCC out of it. So assume that there might still be those kind of wonky things happening.
And lawsuits. Don't forget lawsuits.
And don't forget the lawsuits. Yes, we have so many lawyers about to get paid.
Yeah, AT&T's Hank Holtquist wrote a blog post yesterday essentially saying when the FCC goes to court over this. So,
right.
Yeah.
So they'll definitely go to court. However, all of that said, I have to say that reading through this proposal, it felt pretty measured. It felt like a clever way to try to encompass multiple regulations and give the industry, they're not going to like it. Obviously, there's going to be lawsuits, like you said, and there will be a lot of lobbying, and there will be a lot of rage and posturing. but I don't think that they got particularly burdensome rules here because of the regulations, because of the tariffs, because of the paperwork restrictions being lifted, and particularly that last mile unbundling thing. This isn't, I wouldn't, it was never the ideal solution for the government to step in and have to reclassify the internet and take it over and manage it in that way. But I don't know that this is a very unreasonable solution. I think it actually reads pretty well, and I am delighted to see that mobile is included. And I think that's a big headline coming out of this.
Yeah, they just kind of snuck that in, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh yeah, we forgot this piece.
Right, because last time there were any sort of attempts at net neutrality, mobile was excluded, which was already turning into a disaster. I mean, you already saw the wireless networks. You saw Verizon and AT&T try to say, oh, there's like this data package over here that's a little bit better, or these services will be included for free and won't count against your cap. It's all of those. I mean, it's true. There was a lot of smoke and hardly any, if any, actual fire around net neutrality in terms of the traditional telcos throttling or interfering with traffic. But on the wireless side, you were definitely starting to see it happen. And that, I think it's a huge element of this, that they stepped in and put a stop to that and nipped it right in the bud.
Allison, what do you think of these rules?
Well, I'm definitely, certainly excited. I was intrigued by the overwhelming amount of support for net neutrality that the government received when they opened it up for public comment, right? It was pretty loud and clear what we wanted to see happen. Not necessarily, people saying, well, it has to be Title II or Section blah, 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 but saying you got to have a situation where you don't slow it down and you don't speed it up. I thought that was good. They put those two bounds on it, right? I was curious. I read in the details of the letter a piece that sounded like it talked about peering connections, because it said, let's see, for the first time the Commission would have authority to hear complaints on appropriate enforcement action if necessary, if it determines the interconnection activities of ISPs are not just and reasonable.
Yeah, so Netflix's complaining got them to put in a provision that says, okay, we're going to open up to hearing complaints.
To listen.
It doesn't put any actual rules on those interconnections. It just says if it sounds like it's not just and reasonable, we'll take your complaint on it and look into it.
But it does say enforcement action if necessary, though.
Yeah, and then if they say, and we think something's wrong, then we'll do an enforcement action.
Okay.
But it's at this point pretty vague, and I don't know if it'll get more solid once we see the actual proposal here.
Other than the fact that the ISPs don't want a free and open internet, what is their logical complaint against this?
Well, they do want free and open internet. I think it is unfair to say that the telcos don't want free and open internet. What they want is the freedom to put in their own money-making opportunities. In other words, they invested into laying these lines, and they want the right to make money off them however they want. They see themselves, and this is what it comes down to, they see themselves as an information service. An information service, like a cable television company, says, we have information that a customer wants, and we will dole out that information to the customers we deem appropriate. And that is where the opposition is going to come, is that they don't think that the internet qualifies as a telecommunication service. AT&T's Hank Holtquist had that argument yesterday in his post, saying the FCC will have a hard time fighting precedents indicating the fact that ISPs are information services, and that, yes, telecommunications technologies are used to deliver the information, but it is an information service. He points out that, like, if you talk about the technology that's used to deliver the information, then search engines and e-readers would also be telecommunication services because they use that same kind of technology, but they're not. They're information services. Now, the FCC would have to determine that ISPs offer service indifferently or have geographic market power, argues Holtquist, in order to show that they are indeed telecommunications providers and therefore Title II applies. That seems to be a tip-off of where the legal challenges are going to come from. They're going to say the internet is not a telecommunications service, it's an information service. I'm not sure I buy that, simply because the information isn't being provided by the telecommunications service. It's being provided by lots of other people openly. In other words, a cable company doesn't create the channels, but the cable company goes and makes deals and says, okay, we have these channels and we will now provide them. The internet doesn't work that way.
Well, but then in the case of
Comcast,
sorry.
Except in the case of Comcast, where they own NBC Universal, right? Where they're providing it. So they're saying, look, we're information.
Well, and in the case of Time Warner as well. I mean, you almost wonder, was that the long game all along? Was the long game to just go ahead and get into content so that they could be a little bit of both? Because arguably some of them are a little bit of both. And I think what they do want in the long run is the opportunity to be a little bit of both, to own a little bit of content, to make content deals. I mean, we've seen that on the wireless industry, that they make these very lucrative content distribution deals that may or may not count against your data cap, that may or may not have anything to do with the pure providing of telecommunications. So they have pretty effectively blurred the lines, which is why I think some people had argued that Title II wasn't exactly the perfect fit, right? It wasn't exactly the right glove for this hand, and I think that that's the case. I think the other thing, though, that Tom Wheeler has done here is really issue like a broadside, right? This is a big warning shot that says, sue us all you want, but this is not going to go away, and mobile is not going to be exempt. And so Verizon and everybody who's making all this noise, you're not going to be able to sort of find a back door into creating these fast lanes, because they aren't necessarily good for innovation. Now, that said, slower broadband, less investment, should that occur, and it's very debatable whether it's going to occur, right? Like, these guys still want to keep making money, so they're probably going to invest in their broadband networks.
Can I throw a quote in there?
Yeah.
Verizon CFO Fran Shammo on May 14th, I believe. Wait a minute. No, I've got the wrong quote here. But Verizon...
It's December 2014.
December 2014 said that Verizon, come on, guys. I mean, we'll continue to invest in our infrastructure. We're not going to stop investing in our infrastructure because of this. Yeah, it was December 11th, right here. I got my notes.
Out of a highly regulated company.
This does not influence the way we invest. I mean, we're going to continue to invest in our networks and our platforms, both in wireless and wireline Fios, and where we need to. So nothing will influence that. I mean, if you think about it, look, I mean, we were born out of a highly regulated company, right? So we know how this operates. Then he went on to say, but it will discourage investment.
So Molly was right when she said there would be a heavy debate. It's just all in his head by himself.
This is all in his head, exactly. But AT&T has said, we're going to slow down investment until we figure this out. And that, again, is, we have a lot of sword rattling going on here. But we are also about to enter a period in the new and constantly being written history of the internet in which we need a lot of bandwidth, right? Like, I just wrote a big story about virtual reality and the possibility of streaming virtual reality video to the home. Now, compression techniques are going to get a lot better and so on and so forth, but that's a big video, super big video. And if people want to start consuming that level of streamed content and have that level of constant connectivity, you really do have people on the other side saying there has to be a fast lane for that because of everybody in your neighborhood. And I'm not saying I agree, but I'm saying, like, the bandwidth needs are growing dramatically, and you can understand why these providers, I can't believe I'm taking this devil's advocate position, but I can't help it because I've just been arguing with this one person about it a lot, and I'm like, oh. You can kind of understand why what they want is the freedom to be able to manage it how they need to, and then say, if a truly unexpected use case comes along, like dozens of gigabyte-sized virtual reality files that people suddenly can't live without on Facebook, we want the ability to say, hey, Facebook, you need to pay us a little extra for that.
Here's where I think this is a problem, and why I'm not excited by this. I'm not disappointed or excited, either one. The Republican House legislation says no blocking, no throttling, no paid prioritization. All it does is actually provide a legal basis, because they're Congress and they can make laws, that doesn't involve Title II. What we got here today was an attempt by Tom Wheeler to do exactly the same thing as what the Republican Congress wants to do by forbearing most of Title II. In fact, he says there's less of Title II left after our forbearances than exists for wireless providers to provide wireless telephone service. So this is a kludge. This doesn't do much. It doesn't change the rules. The rules have been out there. They just has been questionable whether they were legally enforceable or not. And the real problem is what Molly's talking about, which is how do we encourage people to invest and roll out? Because yes, the telcos say, well, we need to be able to have flexible funding for us to invest, but they haven't done it. And the reason they haven't done it is they have effective duopolies and monopolies in most of their locations, and they can use Title II to help them get a better and easier way to roll out their access. In 2012, Verizon CFO Fran Chamo said, the factor of the matter is, wireline capital is being spent on the wireline side of the house to support wireless growth. So the IP backbone, the data transmission, fiber to the cell, that is all on the wireline books, but it's all being built for the wireless company. So they go in and say, we're rolling out telecommunications service with these wires, so we want the easier access to poles and compel the other utilities like power and water to let us use their infrastructure, give us a federally controlled price. We'll take all those breaks to roll out our wires, and then when we run internet service over those wires, that's an information service. And you don't get to regulate that as Title II. So they have an unnatural advantage over anybody else who runs these wires. And that's what Google has been out trying to show is like, hey, you can do it anyway. Here are the problems in the system. It's what Tom Wheeler has been trying to battle by saying, you know what, we need to allow municipalities to roll out gigabit fiber. Chattanooga, Tennessee has had gigabit fiber for years now because they decided to do it themselves.
I definitely think that down the road, this is not this. I do not think that whatever the FCC proposes will end up being the rule, the law of the land. I think it is far more likely that what he is trying to do is provide a framework for a legislative solution. I mean, that's what we talked about the last time. We talked about the possibility of Tom Wheeler, of the FCC reclassifying. We said what we need is a new law. And I think it is much more likely, and frankly, might make more sense, right? It is a little odd for this to fall into the FCC's court at this point because you could definitely argue both sides of what the internet is for information delivery versus telecommunication service.
Can I back
and
us up?
So,
oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So I just think that I have a feeling this is hardly the final solution.
I wanted to back us up when we were talking about whether they would invest or not, and Verizon saying that they won't, but they will. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a whole bunch of money by the United States government, as in our taxpayer dollars, that got paid to them to do that investing?
There are some subsidies out there, especially there's a famous case with Verizon in New Jersey where they were given some tax breaks and subsidization in the form of tax breaks more often than actual grants directly. There was a lot of money given by the U.S. government to encourage investment in fiber, much of which has remained dark because there was just no impetus on the other end for the telcos to provide faster internet service for many reasons. Some of those reasons are valid, like we just didn't have people who wanted it. And that was true, and there's no conspiracy theory there. And the other thing is that the marginal cost of adding it didn't provide them the marginal revenue that they wanted. That's why Verizon Fios stopped rolling out, because the shareholders said, look, you're spending all this money, but every foot you roll out is not making you enough money back. It's not growing fast enough. You should wait. All the open market pressures have been to wait, given the fact that we don't actually have an open market for people to roll out ISPs. If you go to try to roll out an ISP, you're at a big disadvantage to a telco or even a cable company because you don't have the relationships with the municipality and the breaks and the potential of subsidies and tax breaks, et cetera.
Well, you talk about impetus. Big Jim is reminding us in the chat room that the FCC just changed the definition of broadband from 4 megabits per second to, I think it was it 20 or 25?
Yeah. And
that maybe that's part of that impetus is you can't even call it broadband anymore unless you start delivering those that speed.
Yeah, that is a huge part of it, and that's a huge part of the competition conversation. And I think that there has to be a way to continue the competition conversation, because if we just reclassify and these guys say, okay, we're going to do God forbid, we're going to do the bare minimum in investment, which I doubt is going to happen. They still can but look, I think we've been predicting for a while that to some extent the salad days of the internet were going to have to come to an end. What these guys are going to do if they feel that there's this sort of if there's this burdensome regulation, is that they're going to increase costs for everyone. And that's always been the trend. That was always going to keep happening. But in the short term, it probably, until it works out and investment gets to where it needs to be, I suspect that they will respond with higher prices and maybe bigger data or smaller data caps, more aggressive data caps. I don't know. It's just very interesting. It's interesting to have come around to the point where I feel like government regulation is not the right way to solve it, that competition is. And have we ever successfully fostered competition through regulation?
Does this discourage competition?
And does it discourage competition? Exactly. I don't know.
No, I don't think this discourages competition. I don't think it encourages competition. I think Big Jim is saying the same thing, and you mentioned this, Allison, that I think what Wheeler's trying to do is say we're going to allow municipalities to make it easy for people to roll out gigabit fiber if they want. We're going to stop those rules that encourage a monopoly or a duopoly, and so you better want to roll out your infrastructure because we're going to try to make it easier for others. I don't know that that's going to work, but that at least is a step towards some manner of competition. What really needs to happen, and maybe this is where we're going, is that, okay, we get these rules. They go into place. They get challenged in court, but they still exist. And nobody violates them because nobody's violated any of these rules, even when they were justified under Section 706, because nobody really wants to be the one that does that until this whole issue is settled. This stretches out for 2 years. We have another U.S. Congress elected, another Senate elected, and a new president. And all of that new government in 2 years agrees that we need internet regulation. We need, not internet regulation, we need an internet bill that addresses the unique nature of the internet as both an information and telecommunications service because it has aspects of both.
Exactly. Well, and that it may not even take 2 years. This might be, honestly, like I feel like this proposal by the FCC could be the thing that pushes forward some kind of a legislative solution along those lines.
Yeah, but the reason I think it has to happen in 2 years is because right now we have a Democratic president and a Republican-controlled Congress who don't want to cooperate on anything. And at least in 2 years, you have the chance of a new government that might want to at least cooperate in the first 100 days.
Yeah, but the GOP is the one who introduced a potential bill that says something very similar to what the FCC said. They just don't want. They just said we don't want.
The president said he'll veto it, so
because it wasn't his idea.
Well, yeah, that's true. You may be right. But are we ever? Let's be honest. Are we ever going to be in a better situation than we're in now? Legislatively speaking. So maybe we should leave it with the FCC after all.
Yeah.
Speaking of leaving, I unfortunately have to jump off. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I parachute in for this one thing and then I got to go. But
no problem. I mean, we knew this was going to go long. I appreciate you taking the time to jump in and talk about it. I really do. This is really good.
It is my pleasure, and I feel quite sure we're going to get to talk about it again.
I think it's all wrapped up. It's done, right, Mom?
Possibly February 26th, and then again after that.
Exactly.
We're good. Yeah.
I'll see you then.
All right. Twitter.com/MollyWood. Go follow Molly if you haven't already, and look for her columns in the New York Times, nytimes.com.
Bye, guys.
Let's move on to our pick of the day. We have an audio pick of the day, Allison. Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
Do you drink coffee, Allison?
I do. I drink coffee from 7 in the morning to noon.
The idea of our picks of the day is that we don't have ads, so this is how our listeners and myself try to get people exposed to new things. Here's a new thing.
G'day, Tom. It's Rob Wells here again over in the UK. I just wanted to give you a pick. You've mentioned a few coffee suppliers. Well, over here in the UK, they have an excellent one called the Has Been Coffee Company. And you get a different grind or bean each week, and they're seriously good stuff. Absolutely amazing coffee. Lots of small suppliers. Anyway, was getting jealous and about all the good coffee you keep mentioning and Jenny keeps mentioning, so I just thought I'd pass it on. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
There we go. Coffee for the UK. Has Been. I kind of like that name, too.
You like a good pun.
Yeah. Send your picks to feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A couple of messages of the day before we get out of here. The first one is a plea from Joe. Joe had a pick. He'll explain that pick, and then the pick went away, and he'll explain why that's a problem. He's hoping maybe somebody in the audience can help.
Hey, Tom, Jenny, and honored guest. I hope that this message can serve as a plea to our smart audience. What was going to be my pick, and I just kept putting it off, was SoundGecko. It's a platform that lets me send links, and the software is very intelligent. It deciphers what's the actual main meat of the article, and does a text-to-voice service. Instantly, if you're at the laptop, it also adds that file to a personal RSS feed. There's an Android app, so anything I share on my phone, I can share it straight to SoundGecko. And email, could send links. And Twitter, I used an IFT recipe. so that anyone shared a link, it would be, and I favorited it, it would go to SoundGecko. And this turned someone with a disability who couldn't comprehend more than a page at a time into a ferocious web content reader. And I'm sad to hear that it's going away. Now I know, well, I don't know. I hope there's something close to what all SoundGecko is to me out there, and that someone out there in the audience knows about it and can let us know. So again, it's SoundGecko, and it takes digital text and converts it to voices. And it had 6 different voices, and all the integrated features are quite amazing. And I was always reading on my commute, or while exercising, or while cleaning. And it's critical to me because of the nature of my disability. So I hope the audience has something out there like that.
And Allison, I know that you like looking into accessibility apps, so I had emailed this to Allison before the show. That doesn't seem to be anything out there, though, at least not easily found.
Not that I've found yet. I did put out the plea on Twitter, and Jeff Bishop suggested trying to do a combination with IFTTT, the if thing to if this then that, to combine RSS feeds with reader applications, because there are applications that do that on Android and on iOS that will read you with the good voices. I think good voices are important to that. But out of the box, haven't heard anything back yet, but I'm going to keep my ear to the ground. If I hear something, I will let you know.
All right. Thanks for sending it in, Joe. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Allison Sheridan. You could find NosillaCast and lots of other great content at podfeet.com. You should go follow Allison on Twitter, twitter.com/podfeet. What you got coming up for us, Allison?
Well, the biggest thing I've been doing just lately is doing more contributions to Don McAllister's Screencasts Online. I just did a video tutorial for... oh, shoot, I wrote a note down to make sure I wouldn't forget the name of the app that I did for him, and I lost it. ClamX AV, an antivirus application for the Mac. So you would think that's a big, boring topic, but I made it fun and interesting. And I'm about to do one on Audio Hijack, the new version of Audio Hijack, so that'll be a lot of fun. In addition to my regular podcast at podfeet.com.
Podfeet.com is the place. Thanks to all of our patrons. You guys make shows like this possible. The people in the audience who see a little value in the show and are able to give a little value back are our bosses, and we love them. There's lots of ways to support the show. dailytechnewsshow.com/support to find all those out. If you've been thinking about doing it, now's the time. We've got a milestone goal on Patreon, patreon.com/acedetect, to try to get some new contributors. And if we get to that goal, that gets us closer to an official video feed. So if you can, help us out. And if you are helping us out, you have our eternal and unending thanks. Don't forget, you can have a voice in what stories we cover at our websites, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, our subreddit actually. Email us, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Call us 512-59-DAILY. Listen to the show live on alphageekradio.com and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll have Alpha Geek Radio's Todd Whitehead on the show tomorrow. Talk to you then.
Is part of the Frog Pants Studios Network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Yay.
Great show.
Whew, that went by fast.
Yeah. And it was long, as we knew it would be.
The prediction was correct.
That intro was fantantastic. When did you record that, Jenny? Like 5 minutes?
This morning.
I was going to say, you
Cheers,
nailed
Crispy.
it. Once we booked Molly, I was like getting ready, and I was just thinking it in my head. I was like, yeah, this is going to happen. I was thinking, like, because occasionally we at the show get notes from people who are like, okay, guys, enough with the net neutrality. And I get it, because there's a lot to talk about in the world, and this thing just keeps on coming up. So I thought it would be polite to let people know.
Oh, and I forgot to give you a hard time, Tom. I meant to do this, but so last week, Apple blows out their earnings. I mean, results like no company has ever done before, so you made the entire segment on how the tablet market is tanking. I thought that was funny.
Well, you mean the main discussion segment?
Yeah, the discussion segment, I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not going to have a discussion segment about, hey, a corporation made a lot of money. Woo! Bigger Nexon. But we did cover it in headlines.
I know.
Did you unmute Roger, by the way?
Oh, hey, sorry, Roger. Gosh, I forgot.
There was a stat I did see that I've been making sure people realized from the Apple earnings. Apple sold 74.5 million iPhones, right? There's 7.2 billion people in the world. That means 1% of the global population bought an iPhone in one quarter.
It's a lot of people.
Wow.
That is a lot of people. I mean, even if you go, well, some people bought more than one, which is probably true. Yeah. That's still a lot.
By the way, since we usually get into these big discussions and then totally miss my input on the headlines, which is my own fault.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to let you know right now that T2 Judgment Day is my vote.
Oh.
T2
and not just because it's SB Sheridan Day. Come on, it's T2 Judgment Day. Come on.
Yeah, I see. It's a visual joke, really. Like I didn't quite. I was thinking T2 when you said it. That's why.
Title 2 Judgment Day.
And then my other favorite is Apple plus Beats equals sauce, but it's not really the main topic of the day.
I think we gotta do net neutrality.
Yeah. So anyway, that was. I mean, I do like Title 2 neutrality.
Howdy
Boogaloo too. There goes great. Anyway, these are my thoughts. You
guys got some time? Not much though, honestly. I'm exporting now. Get your votes in. Showbot.tv.
No one wins.
Kind of the way I feel about it.
I got to vote for T2 Judgment Day, don't I?
Yeah. I mean,
why are you tempted to vote for something else?
In the household.
No.
Is that how you spell judgment? That looks weird to me.
I think he had it with a typo first and fixed it in the show notes or in the chat room, so he probably looked it up. I can't spell it.
It doesn't have an E.
It's just one of those words.
It doesn't.
Maybe there's some alternate spelling that has an E, but.
Huh. Well, that was fun meeting Molly.
You met her entirely in show too.
Mm-hmm. Right. In situ.
In situ, and show you.
Apple beats up competition.
Well, I haven't made a big deal about this because I didn't want to prejudice the audience into thinking they were hearing something they weren't. But we had an entire new porch overhang built over the past 5 days, starting last Friday, and it was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
What were they working on it while you were?
Yeah, they were sawing wood and hammering and.
I never heard a thing.
Yeah.
Good audio compression.
Yeah, well, the Heil PR40s are pretty good about that. I think they also took their lunch break nicely around the time that I was mostly doing the show. I know Jenny could hear it a little bit on Friday when they were sawing a lot, but she also knew it was happening, so it was one of the reasons I didn't see anything. It's not nearly as bad as when they were jackhammering the house next door on Tech News Today back in 2013, and I had to keep riding the mute button the entire show.
Well, if you can't hear the helicopter noise that's above me right now, then all is well.
I hear something outside, but not over my earphone. I don't know if it could possibly be the same helicopter though.
No, it's actually something. It's this thing on the roof that rattles.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that I can hear, and it's
I have an
sort
actual
of like
helicopter out here.
Yeah, it's kind of like doing a podcast from the boiler room.
You do a soundproof box. Take some sheetrock and
right. Just bring a little sheetrock.
Well, no, build like a little sheetrock chamber that covers your setup, and then fill it with pillows and thick drapes.
Yep. I like that. I mean, there is a lot of expertise available if I wanted to make a soundproof area, but really, if you're not hearing it on this, then I feel okay.
Well, that's how we can tell you're on the right mic. That was on my checklist too.
Oh wait, I'm gonna briefly.
Oh yeah, Curtis B. TVZ God is like, I remember that jackhammer, and then Curtis B. said, "Well, at least they aren't doing any landscaping over your fiber connection." Somebody cut my fiber one time.
I remember that.
If that happens, that's when you get in the car
and you drive to Diane's
house. Over to the farmer's market.
Yeah, now I could. Then I actually bitched on Twitter until a Verizon text showed up.
Oh, that's right. Didn't somebody? Oh no, somebody came over on a skateboard with lights for you once too, right?
Oh yeah, that was Theater Monkey who brought me not a skateboard, a scooter. He brought me fluorescent lights.
Oh, what happened? Did your lights go out?
Yeah, I hadn't bought backups. It's my own fault, and they eventually, after a year and a half of constant use, they go out. So
Are they fluorescent?
yeah, they're Kino Flows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but he lives near a lighting supply store, so he was able to grab them. And now I've actually ordered a second set, so that when these go out in a year, I won't have to have anybody run over.
Well, when you get enough cash, you should slowly invest in LED lights panels. You can get them. There's a place up here in the Bay Area that sells them.
These are all LED behind me.
Oh, perfect. So just need one in front of you.
Yeah. Well, what was I going to say? I don't know. What was I going to say? I started actually producing the show.
Sure, it was erudite, as Jenny likes to say. Right?
Erudite.
Sounds like a made-up word. I know what you mean.
It's a word used by erudite people to talk about how erudite they are, and it makes you want to slap them across their erudite. Like self-describing as an intellectual. You might think it, but you shouldn't do it out loud.
It'll get you killed in the October Revolution. I'm just saying.
I mean, right?
Why it's in October?
That's when they had it, Roger. Okay. And yes, I know that it was the Julian calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, so it really wasn't in October for the rest of the world. Because I'm an intellectual.
Well, actually,
I was just going to give the URL for the store up here that sells lights cheap.
Oh, okay. That's good.
That's fine. It's ePhoto. Oh, can I? Oh, maybe I can. I'll type it into Slack.
Ooh, into Slack, and then I won't lose it.
Yeah.
It'll be there.
Slack is forever.
Did you see that Veronica started picking a fight with Patrick Beja about Slack?
Really?
Slack.
Yes.
Where's that?
On Twitter.
Why?
I don't get all the Twitters.
And that's why Scott Johnson jumped in to Slack, because he's like, oh, I'm going to try this thing out.
I know I follow Veronica. What the heck?
Because Veronica and I were doing Sword and Laser, and I was like, I love Slack. She's like, oh, yeah, it's really good. I was like, who doesn't like it much is Patrick Beja. She's like, why not? I'm like, I don't know. He just doesn't seem to dig it much. And so she was like, I'm going to ask him on Twitter. Why don't you like Slack? Poor Patrick.
Why? Is it possible that not all tweets ever come through?
I don't know.
Depends.
I don't try to look at every single tweet. I couldn't possibly. I would drive myself.
Yeah, but I mean,
nuts.
she's like where you're specifically looking for someone, like you.
For example, right now,
but
right now I'm going through the Veronica Belmont tweets, and I literally don't see. Is that because it was just all done?
It was at not Patrick, so you have to show at replies.
Right. Oh, maybe I don't show at replies.
I do lists to follow.
Yeah, I do lists in TweetDeck so that I can actually see friends and family.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what I do too. But it's really weird. All right.
Ooh, I should get this. It's only $350.
Actually, yeah. If you
get what?
If you're not.
No, they have a light panel that comes with 5500 and 3200K LEDs, and you can switch between them depending on the time of day. Like if you're by a window or whatever.
Yeah. Actually, this would be a good if I want to upgrade the green screen for the Tech Republic shoots, or the Internet Society stuff. This might be a good place to get some better green screens. Thanks for this.
They're it's like a weird, like they import everything from China, and they have they're not the most eloquent people on the planet, but they sell stuff cheap.
If you know that it's a good brand or something, they're a decent place to get it, right? Is that what you're saying?
They basically, it's kind of like Central Computers. They tell the factory what they want, and they make it. I have one of their light panels that I bought for like $130 for my camera.
Well, once we get to the video level of the Patreon and Roger is officially our video editor, then we can afford this stuff.
I don't know. I like lights. I don't know why. I was thinking about changing all my light fixtures and just putting them with like LED flat panels. Lights.
You like lights.
I'm mystified. I'm literally mystified.
Oh, you're still looking. Can you not find it?
You know why? You know why this is of interest? Because apparently you wrote something nice about something I did on Twitter, and I could never find it. It just did. For me, it did not exist. Right?
I did not reply you in it.
Right. But I didn't.
I didn't want to be all braggy.
I should be able to go back. Right. I should be able to go back on Tom Merritt, like on your. If I just search for Tom Merritt, even just in the plain old Twitter web.
Oh, you're
app,
doing a search, or you're just looking backwards?
Just looking backwards.
Yeah. You
like
should be
why would that not come up? I mean,
here it is. January 30th. Psst. And it's even replied. If you liked Jenny J23
so
on Current Geek, get more Jenny on her brand new show. Tell it anyway.
And then more important is this whole Slack debate, which I would like to see, and that I can't see. Oh, all right. So Chimera just sent me.
Thanks, Chimera.
The start and the thread, and it does have Notepad. See, these are the weird little things I don't understand about Twitter, which is like if I follow Veronica Belmont and she slaps Patrick around about Slack, I should be able to see it. I don't get it.
You're the best. I'm singing that to you, chat room. All right, now I will upload this gargantuan show that I had to export twice because I forgot to properly edit the beginning of it. But it will be called T2 Judgment Day.
Nice.
You know, I like it more and more every time I look at it. That's a sign of a good title.
The T2?
Yeah.
Do you ever like go back at the end of the day and just maybe right before you go to bed look at it one more time to admire it?
like a picture of myself.
It's kind of like when you buy a new car or something.
Oh, and you go outside to see it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I got to see it when it's in the evening to see when the moonlight bounces off it. You just kind of admire your new purchase.
Whoa, I had to log into archive.org. I haven't had to do that in a while. Yeah, I felt, the last thing I felt that way about was this house when we rented it, and Eileen was still living in temporary housing. I kept wanting to drive over here and look at it. It was partly just because I was planning on, like, when we're going to put stuff in it and stuff. I don't do it with show titles, no. Not so much. Everyone's reading Twitter, aren't they?
I remember what I did previous week. Like, who was the host last week?
Oh, good.
You remember things like that.
I have to keep looking at the calendar. Like, I could tell you Todd Whitehead's on tomorrow. But who's on Friday? Oh, right, Justin Robert Young, because Darren's out for February. I was like, I could guess Darren, but I'd probably be wrong because I know he's out most of February, and that's true. And then Friday, I have to, as soon as DTNS is over, I have to hightail it up to Sherman Oaks. Jenny.
Oh, those are two words that are incompatible. Hightail, Sherman Oaks.
I'll be taking Sepulveda all the way because and Roger, you know Aileen Gaspar, Aileen and George, Toy Break, are doing the Toy Break Marathon, and we're gonna help them kick off the Toy Break Marathon with an episode of Current Geek and have them as guests.
Oh,
nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Their place is great. It's really tiny, but it's great.
Yeah, it is. It is great and tiny, but great.
My mechanic just got here.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Honda Bob is here.
Than usual. Well, tell Honda Bob we say hello.
I'll
Honda Bob.
Soon. I'll see you tomorrow, Tom.
All right. See you tomorrow, Allison.
Bye.
And Roger.
Bye. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Pico and Sepulveda. Pico and Sepulveda.
All right. Well, add TweetDeck and all that to my list of things to figure out tomorrow.
Ego and Sepulveda. It almost looks like Till Judgment Day if you're squinting.
Till?
Yeah.
TV's Egon, I don't know what you're talking about, my impression of the Californians. You want me to take Pico to Sepulveda and then go all the way to Sherman Oaks?
Well, you're going to take 405 to Sunset first, and then you're going to get off on Sepulveda.
Bite my arm off with just a hand, you know. Is that good enough?
Why don't you go back to Marina Del Rey?
You know, it would be... When everyone does that, it's like funny at the same time. It's always like, well, that's the stereotype of anyone from California is like the southern, and not even Southern California, like specifically LA area.
You know what? People from Chicago do the same thing. I can remember when I was at the University of Illinois and people would go to Chicago, or we'd go visit somebody in Chicago. How'd you get here? Oh, I took Dan Ryan until, you know, and then I cut around on anywhere there's bad traffic. That's kind of a natural thing to do, I feel like.
Yeah, up here there's like 2 highways you can really take, and you're stuck on either one of them, you're screwed.
I think everything's natural. You just have to do what feels right and what feels good for your body, and just don't worry about what anybody else thinks, man. There you go. I'm done. I've done it.
It's like I've never heard that accent in my life except on TV.
Oh, I've heard it. I have a friend who talks just like that. Like, just like that. Not in a bad way. That is actually his regional dialect. Like,
well, but that's what, like, I have half my family, extended family lives down there, so I'm very used to like bumping down there, either down to LA or like the Inland Empire, or out in Pasadena. It's like it's very rare I've actually ever encountered. I'm not sure if it's just something that happened and happened only in like a specific cul-de-sac.
I don't know, Roger. Maybe you're just not spending enough time in Malibu. I mean, in Malibu and in Reseda, this is the way people talk. It's just a certain lifestyle choice. I mean, really.
I went to college with a girl from Reseda. She didn't sound anything like that.
I think the brand affinity of AT&T is going to stick.
He just doesn't care. He's going out. He's done.
All right. Goodbye, video viewers. You're the best.